Welcome to the third season of Back from the Abyss. I'm Dr. Craig Heacock. I'm really happy that you've joined us. Chris and I have been working hard on a whole new batch of stories that I think will touch each of you in some meaningful way. We're kicking off this season with an episode that highlights some of my deepest interests. I am totally fascinated with the dialectic between, as Jonathan Haidt described it in his must-read book, The Righteous Mind, this dialectic between humans as tribal primates versus humans as honeybees. This innate pull we all have toward allegiance to the small family clan and, at the same time, the often irresistible lure of losing ourselves into the greater buzzing hive of a purpose much larger than ourselves. This story also explores how trauma either heals or festers in the complex scaffolding of a person's past and their future. This story highlights the power of running and friendship and psilocybin and self-compassion to heal the wounds of sexual trauma. Jamie, our guest today, reached out to me a few months ago saying that, well, she might have a story for the podcast. And holy Batman, does she have a story. So thanks again, Jamie, for reaching out to me. And a question for each of you to ponder as you listen to Jamie's story. How and when in your life did you become a honeybee? When have you lost yourself in the greater group? What have you been willing to sacrifice to feel the ecstatic connection and purpose of the hive?
I grew up in the gym, actually. So I was a gymnast, and all of my memories until I was 13, for the most part, revolve around gymnastics until we were driving in the car. I was like 12 and looked at my parents and kind of just felt like, I wonder what else there is. You know, what do you guys know about this God thing? And so just started asking questions, and my family, aunts and uncles went to church. And so I knew that. But again, I was in the gym truly all the time. And so we were going to meets on the weekends, not to church. That was my church. And so I just became curious. I watched my dad. He was a very passionate person, and his passion, like I wanted that. And I didn't know if it meant something like, do you go to church? Do you believe? And so just becoming really curious about that. And so we went to my aunt and uncle's church. It was a 4-square church in a tiny little town called Hanford. And I can remember walking in, and it just felt curious, you know, there was like a palpable energy almost. And they would do this altar call, right? Every time they would do this altar call. And when I was little, I would kind of look around like, is anyone going to raise their hand? You know, because close your eyes, raise your hand if you, whatever. And is anyone going to do that? And so one day I just felt inside, like I would watch my dad and he would be worshiping, which I realize is kind of a word that needs describing and like a definition too. You know, you really are singing from the inside, singing from your soul to this God that you're connecting with. And like just passion and emotion would spill over him. My dad cried all the time, but it wasn't crying from like, you know, being sad or something. It was crying from emotion and just happy. And, you know, he'd look at you if he hasn't seen you in a while, and he would cry and start hugging you, and his belly would jiggle. And it was fantastic. It's my most favorite memories about my dad. And so as, you know, watching him sing It Is Well, and just tears falling from his face. And so that one day you know, as they were giving the altar call, I literally raised my pinky. My pinky went up, and I thought, no one's going to see my pinky. And after the service, one of the ushers, who are the, you know, people that would come down, one of the ushers came up to me and was like, did I see you raise your pinky? And I was like, dang, I didn't think anyone would notice, but sure enough, there's my pinky. And so then they prayed with me. And, you know, as I would go into church thinking like, I feel like I need to be saved. I feel like I need to be saved from myself. And I wasn't sure what that was about. But there was this deep sense of feeling like I needed to be saved from myself. After I was saved and, you know, said the prayer and my whole body shook. I'm, pretty emotional person as well. And my parents, hugged me, and it was, a happy day. And, you eat a donut because there's always donuts after church. So we had a donut. And that was really how I found faith. And, knowing that like I wanted to keep going back. The people felt great. It was also like a family reunion every Sunday because my aunt and uncle were there, and it was a small little church. So it felt comfortable. There's a sense of being seen, and that felt really nice too. Yeah, absolutely. That was good.
Yeah, I can see what drew you to that. There's something deep in us that really needs and wants community, wants to be seen.
Community. You're right. Like it was 100% about community, but still that knowing that I felt like I needed to be saved from myself. Going through high school was a little rough, if you will, in some parts. There was part of me where I felt like I'm just really into guys. I felt very drawn to wanting to be into a relationship. I felt very sort of physically motivated, if you will. But there was always a polarity to that experience inside me, but it was so deep that I didn't have awareness about it. And so, I just kind of went with what I knew. I loved being in relationships. I enjoyed the closeness that I felt, but also that, the curiosity of how much is okay, right? Within a relationship in high school. And, am I supposed to, because the church would tell you one thing. And so, sometimes like as a teenage Christian, you're like, but can I get that close to the line without stepping over the line? Can I tip my toe on it? And am I okay? And so I was playing with that concept, but then it was deeper for me, but I honestly didn't know why. I had no idea why until much later in my life. Yeah, so I went to college and I was lucky enough to play volleyball in college, and I got recruited from a school that I didn't really know about, but they were like, hey, our school's in Santa Cruz, and we'll pay you to come. And I said, that sounds great, so let's do the thing. So I went to this Christian college, happened to be an Assemblies of God school, and we had to sign a contract saying that we would not dance, which I'll just own up to that. I signed and I did not follow that.
You're a rogue dancer.
Yes. Yeah. And not even very rogue. We would stand up in front of our windows in our dorm room and do the thing. So it just felt odd. Why do we need to say that we wouldn't dance? What is scripture telling us about it not being okay to dance? And if it does say that, I don't believe it, At that school, I was very involved in volleyball, basketball, because I was the athletic trainer for the men's basketball team. And through the men's basketball team, I became friends with all of them, of course. And it was my second year at school that one of the guys on the basketball team, we started dating.
But not dancing.
Oh, I mean, no, there was always dancing in the cars on the way to the tournaments and stuff. Yes, we all decided that was a silly signature, but we all had to sign. So the school no longer exists, so I feel okay about it.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like that's a winning strategy to recruit 18-year-olds to your school. No dancing.
Right, yeah, no dancing. And of course, no drinking, which... honestly, like volleyball was my job, so I didn't have a hard time with that one. It wasn't an issue for me. So yeah, I didn't have an issue. But So I started dating this, guy that played on the team, and it was a unique situation for me. It was a different relationship than I had been in before. He felt like there was kind of a bad boy mentality to him, and something drew me to that. So I think we dated for just a couple of months, and there was, one day where we were at the house, and he lived with several most of the guys played basketball on the team. And we were, up in the room. And again, like, where's the line? What's the line that I exist on? What's the line that I'm comfortable with? And he very quickly went past that line, even with my no, and even with, I want you to stop. And even with the thing that happened to me when he continued is I froze. And, I'm currently at this time, I'm 19 and I'm a college volleyball player, and I'm strong. I was an outside hitter. I was strong, and I just froze limp. I couldn't push him off. I couldn't do anything. And I just allowed what happened to happen. And immediately when that happened, just this blanket of shame fell over me, and it was so palpable, but I also had so much guilt. Like, I think I did it. I think I'm responsible. And so kind of going back, this is where we start to circle back to, I feel like I need saved from myself.
Do you think you felt responsible in that you didn't physically stop it?
Yes.
Yeah, because there you were, a strong, athletic woman, and you froze, but you blamed yourself for not physically stopping him.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Why couldn't I push him off? He was a very tall guy, 6'9", but, not a big 6'9". He was a little bit thin, and I probably could have, I was strong.
Except that your body went to a place, freeze, where we often go when we're just trapped in what feels like a hopeless, helpless situation.
Right. And just this question mark of like, what is happening and why? Date rape wasn't really something that was talked about a lot. We didn't, I was so concerned about the line and trying to manage that. And again, still feeling like kind of drawn to it, that when he went over the line and very much crossed it, I definitely had no's out loud. They weren't just inside. I still thought it must be my fault. Like, I must have done something that made him think I was too promiscuous. I was too, I must have not said no loud enough or enough times or something. And so then it was just a complete freeze of my body. In gymnastics, there was a quest for perfection, right? If you didn't do the back handspring right on the beam, you had to do it 10 times in a row right without falling off. And if you fell off, you had to start over at 1. And so that was, ingrained in me early, right? To keep striving for perfection. So the fact that I must have not done that perfectly in order to make him stop. So enter church. I forgave him because that's what you do. And if he is willing to come to you and say, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. Those were the words. I didn't mean to. And so you forgive and you say, okay. And well, I should say I, but this was encouraged. So that's why I guess I use the word you, but I will own that and say, I forgave him. And, a couple days went by with me just sort of being paralyzed and not really moving much. And But again, I didn't call it rape in my mind. I didn't call it date rape because I thought I was responsible. Like I had not said enough. So then, we kind of went back to dating a little, and it felt different for sure. It felt different until it didn't, until the next time. And the next time was more forceful, and it was 100% in my mind. I knew that I was being raped, and there was a mirror, and I got to watch the whole thing. And the curious part for me was again, and it still is to some degree, even though I've done so much work, I froze again, just 100% paralysis. And it was not, there was a lot happening there. And I froze, but I was vocal. And what was surprising is no one heard me. And I was really vocal this time. There was music playing in the house, though. The entire house was home. And so there was that sense of like, does nobody hear me? Is no one going to come and save me? And so that particular time afterwards, I gathered my stuff and left, and I left a trail in the room. And so as I left, I told one of the roommates, who was a good friend of mine, I won't name names, but I said, I was just raped, and if you don't believe me, go look at the blood on the floor. And it was, kind of hit, and I just saw a sort of deer in headlights look in his eyes, and I left. And that was when I went to my roommate, because I hadn't told anybody about the first experience. And I went to my roommate and told her I was just raped. And so then it's like, what do you do? What do you do with that? You're at this Christian college, kind of a star basketball player, you can connect the lines. We've seen those stories. Do you say something? Do you not? And I didn't say anything. Just kept going and kept doing the thing. And there was one confrontation, I guess it would have been maybe 3 or 4 months after that happened, that I found out he was actually dating someone the entire time he was with me. And she had come to visit the college to see him play basketball. And I ran into them on my way to the gym as the athletic trainer. And I basically let her have it. And I let her know what he did to me. And that was the last I ever heard from him or talked to him or saw his face, because I made sure that I did not pass him ever. And I would not treat him if he needed to be treated. So I go home at spring break, and I tell my mom. I had gotten a little bit of clarity around that this happened, and I was able to name that I was raped and say the word. And I love my mom dearly, but I will say what I felt. She did not believe me.
Oh, gosh.
She believed that I probably had something to do with it, that I probably, made it happen or encouraged him or didn't do enough to make sure that I did not have sex with him. And I said, it wasn't sex. I was raped. There was blood on the floor. And as I was talking and clearly getting angry because I was not being seen by my mom, the thing that I needed from her was actually not to validate that I was raped, but it was this next feeling of the thing that was hard for me is it feels like there was deja vu. as he was raping me, deja vu came up in my body. This doesn't feel like the first time. And so I looked at my mom and I said, did something happen to me when I was younger? And that neighbor, the dad, did he do something to me when I feel like I was 4. That's the memory that came up to me. And all of a sudden, this whole window of child molestation opened up for me. And I had no idea. Our minds are so beautiful and so incredible and so protective. Mm-hmm. And it had just protected and locked that memory away. But my body didn't, right?
Wow. How did your mom respond to that?
As soon as I asked and I said, something I think happened, she lost it and just started crying. The whole body cry. My dad was the one who was willing to go there with me with emotion, but not with this. It was hard for him, clearly. It would be for any dad. My mom just didn't want to talk about it because she didn't want me to have experienced it in the first place. But what I learned was after that happened when I was 4, and she said, you didn't really tell us a whole lot, but we started noticing signs that something had happened to you. And no longer were you, we lived on a cul-de-sac and we would always be playing outside. Inside was never a thing, outside always. We would always be playing outside. And then after it happened, I would hide in the garage. And I wanted to be outside, but I was afraid to go out there. That happened for a couple of weeks. And then even when we were leaving, we would leave and get in the car and drive away, I would hide on the floorboard of the back seat until we were well down the street and I knew that I was safe. And then I would come out. And so that was when my parents started asking some questions. She says that I didn't say exactly what happened. What I know now from doing a lot of work, enter EMDR, enter a lot of different therapies, is that there, those little, I did get the picture of the little hideaways underneath the stairs that have the little door that you can kind of store things randomly. That was the where. And so I could see that picture of me being in there, me being led into that space by this man. And the other picture that I get is someone looking in and not doing anything. And so I have eyes looking in on that little room. Again, kind of, so I think the comparison of when I was raped in college and knowing people were home and no one helping me, that came back to, full circle, and seeing eyes looking in and no one came to save me. No one helped me.
Did your mom believe you then about the rape in college once you brought up what happened to you as a little girl, and then, or did she still hold on to this horrible thought that it was somehow your fault in part?
So there's still, even to this day, a little question mark in her mind. And I have to say, I think there's some protection there. She doesn't want to believe any of it. She isn't trying to not see me or trying to not, love me in those moments. She just doesn't want to believe it. It's too hard. And I really think that's the thing. It's notable to say that my mom was also in a really serious car accident when I was 18, and she had some frontal lobe injury. And so she worked her ass off to heal and recover from that. She had to relearn the word door. She had to relearn how to walk, all the things. So, this happened after that. And so I don't know, had, pre-car accident mom, how she would have responded. That's always been a curiosity of mine that I won't get to know. But I know her love for me is deep, and I can imagine I'm a mom now. I can imagine she just really doesn't want to believe them.
The lifetime impact of a specific trauma is hugely variable and often much less related to the trauma itself, but rather what happened prior to and after the trauma. Was there love and attachment and safety during the person's childhood? Was there a pre-existing anxiety or mood disorder? Were there prior traumas? And after the trauma, who was informed and what was their reaction? Was the person heard and believed? Was action taken to try to help? And was safety reestablished? And, perhaps most importantly, was there repeated re-traumatization? While Jamie came from a stable and loving home, she was sexually assaulted as a young girl, and no one helped her. Thus, there was no chance to validate her experience and reestablish safety. Later in college, she was raped, but when she tried to tell others, she wasn't believed. Nothing was done. She was gaslighted, told it was her fault. Even when she found the man who would become her husband, he didn't seem to understand what she had been through. He wanted her to move past it, to be strong, let it go. And then, disastrously, her husband drew her into a Christian cult in which one of the teachings was that a woman's body was not her own. It belonged to her husband. And this led to years of further re-traumatization and her eventual breakdown.
He was nice. He was nice, and he didn't feel like he was exploiting me, my body, or taking from me. There wasn't a lot of support, I guess, in, if I was struggling with something or whatever. There was a good amount of conversation on trying to let it go. Don't you need to move past that? And that's not just him. That was then, cut to, we're married. We're now in a new church together. Very much. You need to let that go. What was the thing? I was kind of still stayed present in church throughout college, not as much necessarily. And when I met him, there was always the description of, this is different, let me tell you about this. And I'll name it. Sovereign Grace Ministries was the church that we were a part of. And immediately I had this intuition of, are you sure you weren't part of a cult? Because it really sounds like you. It's the same God, right? We're talking about God, Jesus, Holy Spirit, that whole thing, right? Like Holy Bible. What? Like it's a different version. Do you guys read King James? Like you can't read. I just was so confused. Why is it so different? And he laughed. Like, no, it's not a cult. Well, that turns out it might have been. Yes, in my mind, I would call it, yes, it was a cult. So Sovereign Grace asked of you to be very role-oriented. And so I'm a Leo. I'm an independent woman. I have lots of thoughts. I have lots of ideas. I have lots of opinions. I will let you have yours for sure. I love the constant back and forth of like deep-seated, this is what I hold really true to myself. I love those kind of conversations, but I'm not afraid to have, the tough conversation. And so I just kind of went after this type of church. I kept having the conversation. Why do they need me to be in a role of a wife and eventually a mother? And, you had like the order of your life laid out for you. First you're a daughter of God, then your wife, then your mother, if you're mother. Mm-hmm. And it was just so like you had to put it on like a layer of clothing, really, and wear it. And if you didn't, they would call you out on it, and they would, in love, in grace, they would kind of put you back in line, really. And like a border collie, like, nope, bring you back in, right? Mm-hmm. Because I don't half-ass anything, right? I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it all the way. I'll ask questions while I'm doing it, and I'll wonder what the heck. But I really wanted, like, okay, I'm going to do the thing. But there was this deep voice, kind of that deep voice that reminded me of being molested when I was little, there was this deep voice of a feeling of like, this is not you. This is not fully who you are. And so I did things with a question mark always. And I always wanted to be a wife. I always wanted to be a mom. I became a mom really young. I was 24. And I wanted that. Those were always really important. But I always wanted to work as well. My work, I was always in exercise science, and that was really important to me. And it was basically told to me that you can't work. Why do you want to work? Why do you want to go get your master's? Back then I was going to go get my master's in exercise physiology. And why do you want to do that if you just want to be a mom? And I had this like question mark in my mind. Wait, can you do both? Because I feel like I could really do both. You had to be a wife and serve your family and serve your husband and be submissive to the things that he needed. And so his job took precedent because he was the provider. I wanted to say yes. I wanted that to be the thing that gave me all the joy. And that was another thing, like you need to get your fulfillment here. You need to be grateful about this place in your life. And I wanted that. And so I strived really hard for it. And I remember having a conversation with someone, and a friend of mine at that time, and they had a PhD. They were incredibly smart. I mean, this woman was brilliant. And she told me, I realized that I'm just changing my tools, and I'm giving up. She was a scientist. I'm giving up, a telescope or a microscope for a mop and a broom and a vacuum. And these are now my tools of my job, and I'm going to do them well. And wow. I can see your face, and that was my face too.
I'm just always so fascinated by the power of community to kind of subjugate the individual. And even this whole idea that so often in structures, and particularly I think some of the legalistic church structures, that what gets set up is that women are really below men. I mean, women are it's like a different caste. Like there's the God caste, the man caste, and the woman caste. And yeah, it sounds like in Sovereign Grace, you were kind of lower caste.
Oh, 100%. Absolutely. Women could not speak in front of men. Women could not teach men. And oof, I had a hard time. I had a hard time with that. I mean, I really questioned so much.
But you stuck with it, which again, I think is really maybe one of the most interesting things, because, I only know you now.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating. It's kind of mind-boggling to picture you in that role.
Because I would go to bat sometimes with the pastors, and I would go to bat with the pastor's wife. And, we had a great story is we had this small group, this women's group that I became a part of. You had to do like church and then midday church and then the single gendered church and all the things. And, your week was taken up with all the meetings. And this ladies group that I was a part of, we started reading this book called The Excellent Wife. Yeah. So this book, I read books and I highlight things that I love. And this book, I highlighted everything I hated. And for example, it said, if you have the ability to get that box from way up high on the shelf, but your husband is there, you should let him do it so that he can do it for you, because that's his job. And I thought, fuck that. Except, of course, in my mind, it was no way. At that point, fuck was not a word that I could say, but now it is. So I just would come to ladies group really, guys? This is the thing? And there was even a moment a couple years later with one of the women that was in that group with me who came up to me and she was like, I remember when you first showed up and you were highlighting all the things that you hated about this book by Martha Peace. And I was like, yeah. She said, you've changed so much since that moment. And part of me died inside. Because part of me was like, no. And then the other part of me was like, oh, good. I'm finally doing the thing. And people are noticing.
I'm drinking that Kool-Aid.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I still noted the death, that internal, deep, deep death.
Mm-hmm. So you came into Sovereign Grace with this sexual assault history, and it's living in your body. I mean, it was reactivated. Your childhood abuse was really brought to the surface by the assaults in college. And now you're in kind of this legalistic caste system where you are lower caste, where, I think, as you told me before we recorded, that your body didn't really even belong to you. Mm-hmm. Like that was the teaching.
Mm-hmm. This story that kept repeating in the church, like really nailed that story in too by saying, you're down here. And we're up here. Men are up here. So then it just became like this automatic thing. I guess this is just what I do, is what I learned. I guess this is just what I do. And again, cut back to, I felt like I needed saving from myself. And that story of, okay, here's what we do. And, within my marriage, the role of what I needed to be in that marriage, even in our intimacy as well, started to become very servant-oriented, submissive. This is just what you do.
Yeah. I mean, how can there be consent? I mean, how can there be mutual sexual interaction given your history and then given the context of the church you're in? I mean, it seems like you could just potentially be getting re-traumatized.
Yeah.
The whole time.
You're right. You're exactly right. Because I remember one time, little graphic, but positionally saying, I don't want to do that. That's how I was raped. Mm-hmm. And eventually, the first couple of times was like, okay, I'll give you that one. Okay, I'll give you that one. And then it was, if you'll love me, you'll do it. Mm. And even like, getting out of the shower and feeling looked at, and sort of that, the words of, I should be able to look at you because you're mine. And it was like I was a possession.
Yeah.
And I wasn't my own. And that became very, very clear. I never did a deep dive into who am I, because you aren't actually encouraged to. You're encouraged to look outside of yourself. They even would say there is nothing good in you, not one thing apart from Christ. Like, really? That just felt so. I kept trying to wrap my mind around that and wrap my heart around that, and I felt like, but I feel like I have good in me. I love doing things for people. I love serving people. That feels good. Why is there nothing good in me? And we had like this modesty checklist that we had to do. And you had to subjugate yourself to your husband or your father if you didn't have a husband. And if you were a single woman who lived alone, good luck. Who knows what you're going to do? But you had to check your outfit. And it was literally a checklist. You had to start with your heart and decide why you were wearing what you were wearing. Was it for yourself? Was it to honor God? Or was it to strut your stuff in front of guys and tempt them? Was your bra strap showing? Was it see-through? If you hit the sun in the wrong way, could you see your legs, the silhouette?
I mean, it seems like if you were going to design a system to either cause, trigger, or worsen PTSD. It would be this. So you came into this whole church ecosystem very traumatized with some really amazing resilience factors, but you're being told, yeah, there's nothing good in you. Your body doesn't belong to you. You're being re-traumatized. Excuse me, in your marriage. You don't necessarily feel even safe with your romantic partner. You are told by the other women in the group, you have to constantly know that if you're tempting men or drawing them, it's you, it's your fault, it's you, you're broken. I mean, did this lead to, I'm just imagining like a slow motion breakdown or depression or despair or panic or hopelessness. I mean, it feels like this couldn't possibly be heading anyplace good.
I started running. I did. I found running. And I knew movement meant a lot to me. But in college, I didn't really like to run. No, that is too much work. But I realized I think I'm going to have to do this a lot as a college volleyball player. So I better change the relationship I had. So I just started running. And I realized that was my saving grace, that I could hit the pavement and I could work out all the things in my mind. Now, granted, if I wanted to do anything with my running, if I wanted to run races or if I wanted to whatever, because, I go big. And so I started running and I was like, I think I'm going to run a marathon. And that was the first race I ever did, was a marathon. But, I had to wake up and be on the road by 5:30 so that I could get back so that no one would be awake yet so that I could make breakfast because, I couldn't ask him, really to watch the kids for too long. And so I just had so much to work out. And there were definitely moments when I was running that I thought, maybe I just won't come back. Maybe I'll just Forrest Gump this shit and keep on going, Mm-hmm. And I found an amazing friend down the road who, thank God she was 10 years older than me because she was fast as fuck. And I just thought, God, if I could, I'm glad you're 10 years older because now maybe I can keep up with you. And we ran and it was just so nice to connect over that. But the majority of miles, because she also had 3 young kids, were spent alone and in my mind.
Was she in the church?
She was not. She was
not. So two things are pulling you out of this community, the running. You're actually literally running away from your home in the early morning hours, and then you're making a close woman friend outside of the church.
And that was not encouraged, let's just say. She saw me for the underskin that I couldn't wear outside. And what an incredible friend she is and still in my life. I mean, yeah, it was to be seen for past the persona that I was wearing and to know she could see that was not me. And I was hard sometimes. It was hard to be my friend sometimes. We ended up moving from that place and moving to a small town in Illinois. And my then husband left about a year before we moved, and he moved early. And then I became a single mom and was working my first job because I wanted to get a job. And I finally would pursue. I would pursue and pursue and pursue. It wasn't really my first job. I taught a stroller fitness class for lots of years, and that was a dream. It was amazing. But as a single mom, my friends and this particular friend really, really supported me in so many ways. And I remember a very incredible moment when she came to my house and found me in the fetal position on the floor in my bedroom. And I said, I can't do this. And this was before we moved to Illinois. And when we moved to Illinois, the wheels came off the bus, we'll just say. Mm-hmm. And that was when I knew this marriage was not going to last because I was becoming something different. The inside of who I really was starting to come to the outside and seep through, and it couldn't be squelched any longer. So when she found me there, it was kind of a turning point moment for me. And Illinois then became the time when we went to counseling, lots and lots. We went to a Christian marriage counseling that, was kind of like, if this doesn't work, nothing will. That was how they sold this retreat. If this doesn't fix your marriage, 40 hours of counseling with 4 other couples that you didn't know. And let's tell all the things. And this Christian counselor basically said, you have to get a divorce. And that's not what they're supposed to say. Let's just say.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting, Jamie, that two of the things that it seems like pulled you back into the light are two things so dear to me. So running is my greatest love.
Right.
And friendships are I have some amazing, beautiful, just relationships that I'm sing praises for. And yeah, because when I first met you and we started talking about this story, I said, how did you pull out of this cult, really? And you said running, and then you said, and I met a friend. And, I'm always thinking that, we change through relationships. That's how we really change. But in the meantime, how do we cope? I think one way you and I have coped is running. Mm-hmm. And if I hadn't discovered running at age 11, I don't know what would have happened to me.
Yeah. There's so many, many miles that I have put in. And some of those miles almost became my last, truly. I did in Illinois. I thought, hey, this thing could go away quick on this country road, where it was a small town. Country roads, I could run for 4 hours and run into 3 cars. That's cool. And that, truck that just passed, I'm 2 steps away from it. This thing that I'm doing that I love being the thing that takes me out. And if I didn't have my amazing kids, I 100% believe that I probably would have done that. And so running, while it saved me, it almost also cost me. I still do it. I still have a love relationship with it, and it's helped me heal more than anything. And the amount of conversations. So I had one friend. That one friend was in San Diego or North County, and the other friend that I met was in Illinois. And we truly worked out our divorce together in a lot of ways. And there were so many conversations and time on the pavement. And there's something, meditative about it too, really healing of just the repetitive nature of it. You can get lost in the steps, lost in your breath, lost in the scenery. It's just, it's amazing. Also an addiction a bit.
I'll give you that. Yeah. So what does this basically healing recovery period looked like from leaving your marriage, leaving this church, and now having to find who you are and who's Jamie and how are you going to make your way in the world, and what does that look like for you?
It has looked like a lot of things. Since 2015 was really, 2012 to 2015 was when we were in Illinois, and kind of, if I met you in Illinois, I feel like I should apologize. I was a mess for a lot of it, and moving out here now to Fort Collins, I've still been a mess for a lot of it, but I have found people and modalities and freedom to explore who I really am and how I want to show up in this world. And it really took Like first, some counseling from a non-Christian therapist who helped me find Pema Chodron, who's one of my amazing mentors that I'll read anything that she says. I'll listen to anything. Her words just have been manna to my soul. And then I really had to start looking at life from a whole different lens. What kind of freedoms am I willing to give myself? And how am I willing to change my story? And I felt like I wanted to change it not only for myself, but also for my kids. And I wanted to give them the ability to do life as they see fit. Do you want to go to church? Does that feel good to you? Or do you not? And we've all chosen not. But I would support I would support if they wanted to, but it just felt so important for me to find my authentic self so that then, and this was like when my oldest was just starting to, teenage. So kind of an important part for me, but we kind of have learned and journeyed together, truly. I mean, in your teenage years, like, whew, especially now, like there's so much learning and growing that they're doing. And I wanted to give them the picture that I'm growing too and I'm changing too. And so I just continued to work out my trauma story because I felt like it was important for me to find deeper knowing. What is there? And I started sort of lifting the veil on my rigidity of what was right and what was wrong. It was wrong to do drugs. It was wrong to get drunk. It was wrong to do these things. And there's some truth to some parts of those statements still. My family has a good amount of addiction in their substance use and abuse and disorder and, alcohol use disorder, all kinds of things in their past. And so I always knew like I should treat that very carefully. I'm an all-in kind of person. So I feel like if I go in, I might be all in. I started learning about cannabis first and some healing properties of cannabis. And then I started learning about psilocybin. And this amazing plant medicine has, I want to give homage to my amazing counselor as well, who has done incredible work for me. But I'm so physically and somatically oriented that I needed something to go with me deeper. So I, like anything else, researched the shit out of it to make sure that I felt good about it. And we're talking like 4.5, 5 years out of all the things. I was a conservative Christian up until 6 years ago. So there's been a lot of different clothes I've put on, how do I get dressed in the morning? I don't even know, right? I don't know what to wear. I don't know what to put on.
I think you need a different kind of checklist.
Right. Right. No, yeah, I do. It's true. So I found a way that I was wanting, and actually I should say that I started a grad school program, in fact. So since leaving the church and that role of needing to be a submissive wife, I've gotten my yoga certification, my personal training certification, which is always kind of there, but just the actual thing. I got a job, I worked, I am now putting myself through grad school. I've done a lot of things in 6 years that I couldn't do, that I wasn't allowed. And I'll use that word intentionally. I wasn't allowed to do. And so this just seemed like the next thing. Let's take some mushrooms
Okay, I don't think well, maybe a lot of listeners of this podcast would think that's the next thing, but
It's not
I think
obvious.
in general, yeah, yoga, master's degree, mushrooms. But
They
okay.
go together, right?
All right, we'll go with it.
And
Okay.
my master's should be said. My master's is in addiction counseling too. So also there's that, thinking like, hey, these are also wrong still. There's a lot of abstinence-based teaching still in the world of addiction counseling. There's a good amount of harm reduction, which I love. And I have always... that's the thing that if we can circle back to that, I felt like I needed saving. I've always felt kind of on the outside a little bit, just I don't navigate the traditional waters, and I never really have. And so why not mushrooms, right? These are not traditional waters to navigate. Yeah.
Yeah. It kind of reminds me, I had a good friend in college who's then... his eventual wife told me that she grew up with these hippie pot smoking parents in Palo Alto, and she just couldn't figure out how to shock them. So she joined Campus Crusade for Christ because she thought the only way you can rebel against pot smoking hippie parents. So anyway, you,
wow.
Jamie, went from conservative Christian to DIY psilocybin.
Right.
Okay.
Did the inverse of that.
So why psilocybin, and then what did that experiences look like for you?
Yeah, I started doing research and I just believe in it. I believe in the medicine that it is and the history that is there. The ancestry with psilocybin is so long and rich, and there's amazing people. I could throw down a bunch of names, but there's amazing people doing incredible research on it. And it just seemed, now I've never done anything, right? So up until 2015, I had never done anything. I'd barely gotten drunk. So I have no experience with psychedelics, but I'm pretty sure it's the thing for me. And, there's a belief, there's a buy-in factor. I knew that this was something that was going to help. I read The Body Keeps Score and knew that trauma lived in my body. And I needed it out. And so I felt like I could maybe get it out with this. And then turns out I found this podcast called Back from the Abyss and heard a couple stories even. And so I was like, some people are doing the thing. Maybe that's what I need to do. And so I set out on a solo psilocybin journey. I will say, not always recommended to be solo in, a heroic dose of psilocybin, but...
And why those two choices? The solo and the starting with the very large dose.
Yeah. Go big or go home, Craig, right?
I guess if you're going to do conservative Christianity, you're going all in.
Dude, I don't half-ass anything. Like I said, I'll circle back to that.
Okay.
Let's just do it big.
Yeah.
So, solo was really important to me. And that was probably the piece of the puzzle that I was nervous about. But I had, set and setting being one of the most important parts of your psilocybin journey. This was intentional. This wasn't like I'm going to go outside and I'm going to see if the moon breathes with me and see how the trees sway in my, honor. This was intentional. I was doing a deep dive. And so I knew I needed to go big. I needed the heroic dose to get it all out, if you will, is what I thought. And I didn't want, even if there was somebody that I could ask, and I had plenty of people, to be in the other room. I didn't want the eyes. And honestly, when I was 4, no one saved me. When I was 19, no one saved me. It was time for me to save myself. And I was going to welcome this medicine in to help instead of another person and believing another person was going to come save me. Christianity didn't save me, So I made sure that I hid my car keys from myself. I locked all the doors. I barricaded myself in my bedroom. I had music playing. I had my screensaver set to all kinds of, good, bright colored psychedelic, stuff. You're supposed to do that, right? I had gummy bears by my bedside because for some reason I felt like that was important and I needed snacks of gummy bears. I don't really eat them well, no, that's not true. Sprouts gummy bears are amazing and I've fallen in love with them, unfortunately, but they were going to be the thing that helped me in my psilocybin journey. I have no idea why. And so I went in and got in my bed and got under the covers when I started feeling kind of the effects. And I will say I had 2 experiences prior where I did just a little taster dose just to kind of see. So I knew a little bit about how I might feel, but I didn't know. Really. So the deep dive was, I took enough to make sure that I got there. And I pretty much crawled under the covers and I didn't come out for about 5 hours. I almost want to give the mushrooms names because they 100% felt like they had human form. I mean, we had conversations. What I wish I would have done is had a recorder going to see if the things that were in my mind actually came out and they were audible. But, we talked to each other and my intention going in was I want it out. I want all the trauma that lives in me to come out. And I had also this question mark of I feel like there's another piece and this sort of cousin piece for me that felt stuck in me. Did something happen? Because I got just the same as I got when I was 4. Just these pictures. My age, a picture, a where, and a feeling. And I had that again around 8 years old. So I kind of asked that of the mushrooms, would you do me a solid? And would you help me with this? And so, they dove in and they would kind of get in there and they'd look at me with their mushroom eyes and say, we have to go deep. We have to go in. And I would have to give them permission every time. It's okay. I want it out. And that was my mantra. It's okay. I want it out. And every time they would kind of dive in deep and they would expunge something from me. And I think it's important to note that something would come out of me. And the knowing that I had inside my body and inside my mind was they were expunging old semen from my body. And the viscous quality that was coming out of me. And it was coming out my mouth, my nose. It almost felt like it was coming out my ears. I don't think it did, but it just up, which I found was interesting that nothing went down, so much of my trauma was down. And it was almost like they said, we're going to leave that, you've had enough experience down there. We're going up. And they just mined for everything. And they gave me the knowing of when I was 8, we're going to go deep, we're going to get it out. And I would, again, it's okay. I want it out. And my body would shake, my shoulders would shake and I would say, ew, every time, ew. Because it was terrible. And the lovely thing that I've experienced about psilocybin and in this journey especially is the depth of healing that came, but also the moments of pause that happen in the journey. It was like they would go deep and then they would pause and let me rest. We're going to rest in between that contraction. If you've had kids, you're just going to get a moment to breathe. And then we're going to ask for your permission to go again. And every time I got this moment to kind of give an aerial view of what just happened. I was so grateful for those moments of rest,
Wow. Your description sounds so much like what people describe with ayahuasca, which I think is really interesting because apparently, high dose psilocybin is basically DMT, and ayahuasca is, time release DMT.
Right.
But, where you talk about the permission and the mushroom entities and going deeper and the pause. I mean, it sounds like many stories of kind of trauma exorcism I've heard with ayahuasca.
Right. Yeah. I felt it come out of my body. You know, I didn't throw up like ayahuasca. And there was a knowing of what they were expunging, which I was so grateful for. Because then it gave me like clarity that it's coming out. And truly, you know, when I came out after 5 hours, and I had very smartly been informed to cover all of the window or the mirrors in my house, which I did, and I was so grateful for that. But when I came out, I mean, I felt like I was wearing new skin. I felt like my body had kind of done a 180, and like the inside of my body was now on the outside, which was like my authentic self, who I really knew, the deep person who my friend in San Diego saw was now on the outside. And I don't think, I should say, I know I couldn't have gotten there without the mushrooms helping me. Yeah.
Wow. So what's been your experience of your body, your somatic experience ever since that session? It sounds like there was a lot of movement and purging and depth work. I mean, does your body feel different? Or do you experience your body differently now?
I do, yeah. And I did that just this January. And so, you know, it's been about 5 months. And I mean, the beauty of these big trips, and any trip really, like there's so much memory to it, you know? I can remember just like I did it yesterday. My body continues to be the thing. I'm a very somatic person. And so I need to keep doing stuff, healing practices for my body. Yoga is so important to move, to breathe, to feel and experience. I've started doing craniosacral therapy. I have some amazing therapists, one here and one in Boulder, who just are allowing me to like feel into my body in different ways and to honor the things that I'm feeling, and to like reground myself and to say that this is good and that you have full autonomy. You know, I've never had that. And so this is like a whole brand new experience of like being in this new body. So yeah, I continue to do more somatic work, because it turns out that it might take a little while to undo 34 years of you know, trauma.
If you like this episode, please pass it on to someone else who might find meaning in it. If you want to reach out to Chris or me, you can email us through my website, craigheacockmd.com. We'd love to hear your feedback. Also, make sure that you follow or subscribe to Back from the Abyss. That way you won't miss any of our episodes, which I believe will continue to come out about twice a month or so. Chris and I have made a renewed commitment to quality over quantity. We want these stories to be worth the wait.